at Meharry Medical College, and she's talking about some of the issues dealing with childhood obesity. Dr. Bean, let's see if we might be able to pick up where we left off at the end of the second segment and give you an opportunity to elaborate upon some of the things that you're saying and perhaps bring in some additional information during the next 8 or 9 minutes that we have here.
Well, one of the things people need to realize that the epidemic of childhood obesity has, in fact, almost reached epidemic proportions. So we're talking about children who are less than 5, of which as many as 20% of them are already obese, and the obesity increases as the age of the child increases, with the highest incidence of obesity being among adolescents. So what do we do about it? The issues of how we haven't been very successful, by the way, in treating obesity, not only in children but also in adults. So preventing is extremely important. So the first thing that one should realize in terms of prevention is that every child needs a medical home. So every child should be going on a regular basis to see their primary care provider in the community, and that primary care provider should understand and be educated about how to prevent childhood obesity, should be monitoring the child at least on a yearly basis, and also counseling the parents on what they should do. And so what are we talking about what parents should do? It's relatively simple. We're saying you should decrease intake of fast foods. We're saying that you should have breakfast. Children should all have breakfast, and it should be a healthy breakfast and include fruits and vegetables, and that we should avoid as much fast food as possible. Not saying don't have any. We're just saying that it shouldn't become the primary way that a child eats. We found that, for example, families who eat together, the incidence of obesity tends to be less in those children. I will tell you that one of the major contributors to childhood obesity is adult obesity, having parents who are also obese. And so it's a family problem, not just a child problem. And that you really need to work with the whole family, and for the family to recognize the fact that this is a family problem, and the parents need to address their problem as well. We also recommend increasing physical activity. Adults should be getting at least 30 minutes a day of vigorous activity. That doesn't mean running, but it can mean a vigorous walk. You need to work up sweat. And children should be getting a minimum of 60 minutes every day of vigorous activity. Again, you want to have at least activity in which the child works up a sweat, the child raises his heart rate. So we want vigorous activity for at least 60 minutes. And it doesn't mean the child has to participate in organized sports, but it does mean that there should be an activity that's occurring that in the school, in the home. And again, these are things the parents and the child can do together. So we're promoting the family at the same time as dealing with a very serious health problem. If you don't deal with it, you wound up with children who are overweight and obese. And some of you may have heard of the term body mass index, which is the way we now measure it, which is just a way of measuring how much fat you have and classifying people in terms of that. And so it basically involves looking at your weight and looking at your height and calculating how much more do you weigh than you should weigh based upon how tall you are. And then, because, you know, there are football players who are not obese, but they're big. So we need to remember that. And so the body mass index on every child should be being calculated when they go in to see their pediatrician or family practitioner who is taking care of them. And then when we begin to see a child who has an excessive weight gain, then we should begin to talk to the parent about what you need to do to prevent it. Now, when we do wound up with a child who is overweight or obese, then we need to address the issue of why do we care? We care because there are lots of complications associated with it. First of all, if you have a child who has a problem already, for example, asthma, then children who are obese, their asthma is worse. And it's very difficult, much more difficult to control. We all know that obesity in childhood, obesity in adults, is a precursor for diabetes, and it's a very high instance of diabetes. We're now beginning to see diabetes, so-called type 2 diabetes. We're now beginning to see that in children. We're beginning to see that in children as young as 10, 11, and 12. That is almost unheard of. It was always considered to be an adult disease. It's now becoming a childhood disease, which is directly related to the epidemic of obesity. The issue, those adolescents is special, but even younger children, we're beginning to see hypertension. Again, that's an adult disease, but we're beginning to see hypertension in that particular population. Children who are obese have problems with sleeping. One problem is that they have an increased incidence of what we call sleep apnea, which means that because they're so obese, they just, when they try to sleep, they just get in position, so they just don't get enough oxygen. That means that they don't sleep well, they have sleep apnea, they don't sleep well at night, which is very dangerous.
It's dangerous,
condition.
It would
And can, oh yes, it can cause sudden death. And many grossly obese people actually have died from sleep apnea. But sleep apnea also means that you don't sleep well because you wake up frequently during the night. For children, that means if you don't sleep well, then you're not rested, and when you go to school, you're not going to learn as well. The other problem, of course, as you know, children are traditionally extraordinarily cruel. So it's just the nature of children, so that they tend to pick on children who are obese. And so therefore, it has issues related to self-esteem and depression. And you often see poor school performances because children don't want to go to school. Depression is a big problem among children who are obese. And it becomes progressively worse, especially during adolescence. And so there are lots of what we call comorbidities or complications related to, to being obese that we need to address. Yes, we can deal with some of the issues which we call tertiary prevention. We know you might have sleep apnea, so we can evaluate you for sleep apnea. And there are things we can do to help you to sleep better at night. But what we really need to do, of course, is to decrease that weight. Children are unique in the sense that weight loss alone is not always the primary goal. Because remember, children have to grow. So that means that if you're 7 years old and you're obese, then the goal may not be for you to lose weight, but it means that we need to slow down your weight gain, and by the time we hope when you get to be puberty or an adolescent, you're going to have your growth spurt, you'll take care of a lot of that yourself. On the other hand, if you already have some of the comorbidities we talked about, if you're already showing glucose intolerance and you're pre-diabetic, then that means, yes, we're going to have to help you to lose weight. But again, it comes out the same in the sense that we're not going to put you on a diet and say you have to lose 20 pounds in the next year or even 2 years. It's a very slow process with children. We want to slow their weight gain. We want to begin to see some weight loss, but we have to make sure that children get adequate nutrition because they have to grow. And so it's taking care of childhood obesity is different from dealing with adult obesity, even though the basic facts are the same. But it is a great opportunity in terms of being able to work over time with a problem. And so that you have many years, hopefully, to solve that problem. And programs that work are programs that are designed to change the life of the child and hopefully the life of the family at the same time.
You know, you've been involved with this for a number of years, and I would imagine, can you say that over the last 2 minutes that we have here, that over the last 5 years you've seen any kind of positive change in reference to adults coming to an understanding of some of the things that you feel that they have to do, that is eliminate fast food and et cetera? Have you seen any progress over the last 5 years in reference to that happening?
Well, what I have seen is a greater understanding on the part of society as a whole, because it costs a lot of money to take care of adults with type 2 diabetes, and now you're seeing children with type 2 diabetes. And so there's a recognition by the healthcare providers and the healthcare insurers and the government that this is a big healthcare problem. I'm beginning to see parents who are responding to those healthcare messages by actually asking for help in terms of recognizing that their child has a problem. What I need to see, and what we all need to see, is not only parents seeing it as a child problem, but parents beginning to recognize the fact that it's a parent problem, and that behavior change doesn't just involve the child, but also it's going to have to involve the parent.
And this would also, over the last minute, mean also dealing with another issue that sort of falls in line with that, and that is this great disparity between African Americans and perhaps other groups dealing with this whole issue of this, obesity and etc.
Obesity has the highest incidence among African American children. African American females have one of the highest incidences, and by the way, Hispanics also have a very high incidence. So, for example, Hispanic males have the highest incidence or prevalence rate of obesity, but it does disproportionately impact minority communities, and especially our community, and one reason is because of access. And we've talked about the issues of access, lots of access to fast foods, minimal access to fruits and vegetables, lots of no and minimal access to being able to do physical activity outside.
Very good. And of course, Dr. Bean, let me thank you for bringing that excellent information in reference to childhood obesity and other children's diseases. And of course, we'll be back with our audience next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.
Monday at 8 on